Okay, guys, let's get into this real quick. This video is about something that is a little scary. Let's put some happiness in that. But here's the deal. This video is going to talk about the additional things that Trump could do to go ahead and, to be very straightforward with you, make it more likely that people would be kicked off of disability benefits. Now, as you know, he wanted to get rid of the grid outs, which would kind of screw over the people trying to get onto disability benefits and the people who are already on disability benefits. And while the rules wouldn't exactly hurt the individuals that are already on it in the immediate sense, it would warp the culture of the Social Security Administration and then ultimately down the line increase those who are kicked off of disability benefits, even though the old rules are supposed to apply from when they were originally found disabled. Now, before we get into this, I always forget to say, please remember to like and subscribe. So many of you don't hit the like button, and you really should, because this is amazingly, incredibly important information that you can go ahead and share with others. And it is from a legal perspective. I'm Attorney Walter Hnot, the most viewed, subscribed to, and clicked on disability attorney in America. Now, let's get into this real quick. Before we go into the new things that Trump could potentially do to make it tougher for people to remain on disability benefits, to make it tougher for people to be found disabled in the future, because, remember, if you change the SSA by changing the rules, it's going to change the culture. You first have to know the 5-step sequential process and the 8-step sequential process. What is the 5-step and the 8-step sequential process? These are the base fundamental elements to winning disability benefits. Let's talk about that real quick. All right, so at the end of the day, the main function with this situation is that a lot of people who are like social workers, they don't know what the elements of disability benefits actually are. They go through like a little training program and sometimes like a whole weekend, they get certified, but they don't even know what the elements of disability actually are for those who are trying to be found disabled and those who are already found disabled that are trying to keep their benefits. So I'm going to share that information with you because you need to know that before we go through the new rules that Trump could potentially use against you. So let's go through it real quick. Number one, the 5-step sequential process. When you're trying to be found disabled, whether it's you're trying to be found disabled the first time or you were kicked off of benefits and you're now trying to be found disabled again, the 5-step sequential process. Are you earning SGA? $1,620. 2026 will be $1,690. If you're earning that or consistently earning that or above, you will not be found disabled because you're earning too much. Next one, has your impairment lasted or will last 12 months or be terminal? Next one, is your impairment so severe that you meet a predefined list of impairments or disabilities that the government has already laid out, a predefined list of impairments or disabilities? Element number 4, can you do your past relevant work, the jobs you used to do within the past 5 years? It used to be past 15 years, which was insane. Now it's just the past 5 years. Could you do those jobs? And then the final one is, could you do basically other types of jobs in the national economy? These are the 5 elements that define whether or not somebody will be found disabled. And the weird thing is they don't teach people that are social workers trying to help people. So it's important that you know them so that you can go forward and kind of push in your own direction to advocate for yourself. Super thank you, Diana, for the $2 donation. That's awesome. Wow, 23-month appreciation. And she's got the very cool membership logo, which is awesome. Let me put a little heart on that. That's very cool. So that's the 5-step. That is the 5-step sequential process. Now, what is the 8-step sequential process? Well, the 8-step sequential process is the process used to see if somebody gets to keep their disability benefits once they're already on them. Most people go through a CDR every 1 year, 3 years, 5 to 7 years, or not at all. And as a result of that, a lot of people become lazy in trying to upkeep their benefits. I always tell people you have to be an advocate for your impairments. You are the person that has to treat it like a job to go and get treatment. A lot of people will get disability benefits. They won't go to the doctor. And that's citizens that are civilians. That's citizens that are veterans, the whole group of them. They don't get medical treatment sometimes because they're like, what are they going to do? They can't fix me. Nobody gives a shit about them fixing you. They couldn't fix you before. They couldn't fix you to begin with. Nobody gives a shit about that. The reality is you have to go get treatment to create evidence. And if you're hearing this for the first time, you're like, nobody cares. Use your adult skills to up your ability to have that, being an adult thing. You know what I mean? Because think about it. Like if you go to the doctors and they tried and it failed, and they tried and it failed, and they tried and they failed, right? You can't, you know what I mean? Like you can blame the doctors, you can blame medicine, you can do that, but you can't stop going to medical because the SSA relies on that evidence to show that they've tried this, they've tried that, they tried this, they tried that, and everything has failed. You have to keep going. Even if they don't do anything, even if they're not able to do anything, they have to keep showing and writing down that you are severely impaired. That's the gig. When you're found disabled, you have a job. It's upkeeping your benefits. What are the elements, 8-step sequential process, used to define, again, used to define whether or not you get to keep your benefits? I'm going to do this one a little bit slower because, frankly, the 5-step sequential process is easier to understand. That's for when you're being found disabled. The 8-step sequential process is a little bit trickier. So I'm going to do this one a little bit slower. Again, please remember to like and subscribe. Also, before I do the 8-step sequential process, if you have Medicare questions, I don't do Medicare. I don't sign people up for it. I don't answer questions on it. I don't do Medicare. Give these guys a call. They can do a tune-up on your Medicare, or if you're about to get Medicare, give them a call. They can do a tune-up in general. All right, let's get this rolling. So here's basically the deal. Element 1 of the 8-step sequential process, and you need to know this because literally when Trump potentially looks at changing these other things, it's going to mess this whole thing up. And remember, some of you are like, oh, I hate Trump so much. And some of you are like, well, I raised Trump in a crib in my bedroom for the first 32 years of his life. And then after that, for the next 30 years, I was the one that basically fed him every night. You know, and some of you both, you know what I mean? And both are fine. Some want to lock them in a basement. Some want to raise them in their basement. Totally, both are fine. A little weird, but both are fine. Okay. So here's the first element of the 8-step sequential process. Number 1, is the beneficiary, you, engaging in substantial gainful activity, right? So are you earning at a job $1,620 per month? Okay, if you're earning that and more and you're consistently earning that, then you're no longer disabled. Yeah, they have a 9-month trial work period. Yeah, they have a 3-month extended eligibility period. Yeah, they have a ticket to work program. But if you are beyond that, or you don't opt into that, you don't use it in a smart way, then ... you will get kicked off of benefits. So if you violate element 1, you're off. Element 2, does the beneficiary, that's you, the recipient, have an impairment, those are your disabilities, or combination of impairments, all of your disabilities combined, that meets or medically equals a current listing? Now, I'm going to tell you something. It's going to piss a lot of you off, and I'm okay with that because what the hell do I care? Most of you are not that severely disabled. Oh, how could you say that? How could you say that? Most people that were found disabled back in the day, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, they're not that severe. They're not. You have ones that truly are, but a lot of them that I talk to that are going through CDRs, they're not that severe. Okay. It was just a different program back then. Now, most people found disabled nowadays are not as severe as listing requirements. Most of the claims that I win are vocational allowances or grid outs. Those are lesser types of approvals. An approval's an approval. Hey, approval's an approval. They get paid, they get a check. But it's not a listing level or compassion allowance listing level. Okay, now let me explain to you why. Most of you are not about to die from your impairments. Those are like your compassion allowance listings. Most of you are not about to be bedbound or just less than bedbound, which are listing level impairments. Most of you are what I would call functional adults who are limited in your ability to do full-time work, but could do part-time work. You could do. And here's why I say this. You have to understand, I have a lot of disabled people that work for me that are more disabled than a lot of the people I get found disabled or get found disabled for disability benefits. So you got to understand, a lot of you are not going to be able to do a full-time job. Cool. Is what it is. A part-time job, work 2 days, or work 2 hours a day. Yeah, you could probably do that. You could probably do that. But you're not going to work 8 hours a day. And that's where most disabled people are at. They get what's called a vocational allowance. That's where one impairment or combination, it's almost always a combination of impairments, limits your ability to do vocational work-like tasks, right? So you couldn't do work stuff. You couldn't do the cashier thing. You couldn't do the stocking shelves thing. You couldn't do the flip the item over, send it down the line thing, right? That's what most of you have as impairments because you're not that severe. You're not severe enough for a listing level criteria. And I tell you guys this and you get insulted, and I understand it, but just to clarify, Because a lot of you, I'm so severe, I'm dying tomorrow, oh my goodness, just to be fair, listing level criteria for an amputee is not missing one hand. It's where both hands at the wrist must be taken, or both feet and the ankles must be taken, or one leg plus half the hip must be taken. That is a listing level, a predefined listed medical condition that gets you found disabled, traditionally at element 3, which most of you are not. Most of you have to go all the way to element 5 and then get a vocational allowance or a grid out. You're just not that severe. And I know you're, oh, how could you say that? Oh, butterfly fingers. I'm so angry. I get it. And I understand where I get it. But at the same time, understand you're not terminally ill. You don't have 6 months to your name. You're not. You're just not. You're also, right, not pretty much bedbound or just less than bedbound. Like you can get out. You can drive a little. Most of you can get around. Some of you can't drive. Some of you say you can't drive, but you can drive. And I get it. I understand how it works. I am not devoid of the reality of the way it is. I get it. Okay. I understand. All right. So bottom line is element 2 of the 8-step sequential. Let's do the elements again. 8-step sequential process, deciding if you are still disabled under the rules and regulations. Okay. Is the beneficiary engaging in substantial gainful activity? Are you working and earning more than $1,620 per month? And remember, this is something almost all disabled people get wrong. That is not $1,620 after taxes. Disabled people and retired people, after so many years, after like 3 years of being on benefits, you guys kind of like forget about taxes. Like you pay taxes if you live in some more stupid states. No offense, but you pay a lot of taxes if you live in certain states. So you get it that way. But a lot of people, they're just like, pay taxes on my benefits? What? How could that be? I can't believe that. There's a disconnect because, obviously there's no like, here's your benefits. And then we're taking, basically 30% away from you. Like your brain doesn't, you know what I mean? So again, it's not $1,620 net. It's $1,620 gross. Very important. Very, very, very important. And I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to give you what it is. That's this. If anybody were to sum up this channel is not friendly in the most cuddly way. It is salty. It is spicy, but it gives you reality. And that's all. That's what I'm trying to do. A lot of these other channels, it's shit all over the place, but they're also not attorneys. So like, they get to kind of like fluff things up a little bit and play with the marshmallows. They're just sitting there playing with those marshmallows. But me, unfortunately, I don't get to have a unicorn. I get like the pissed off little Shetland pony running around going, this is what the statute says. I don't know why I went with the pony. I should have gone with like a magical beast, but it is what it is. All right, element 2. Does the beneficiary have an impairment or combination of impairments that meets or medically equals a current listing? Remember, listings are really severe. They're like really, really severe. They're not extreme, mild, moderate, severe, extreme. They're not extreme where you're going to like pass away in the not too distant future, but they are really severe. Okay. So do you have a listing? Most of you don't. Most of you are not that severe. Again, I understand some of you are sitting there going, of course I'm not severe, blah, 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 blah. Remember, listing level is one impairment that is so epically bad that you really can't function. And I know I can't function. No, I mean, you really can't function. You really can't think. You have a hard time forming sentences most of the time. If you're in one of those listing level impairments, you have a hard time physically rolling to get out of a bed. If you're in one of those types of listings, and a lot of you aren't that. A lot of you are like, oh, I'm just a little sore. I'm sore, but you can get out. A little pain medication goes a long way with a lot of you. Just to be fair, you know what I mean? It is what it is. Element 3, okay? And this is the one that F's over most of you. And I got to, because remember, I get calls from these people all week long. Also, side note, there's 8 private sessions, where people hire me for a half an hour or 1 hour session. There's like 8 of them that I have not scheduled. Some of them are 10 days paid. I just haven't had a chance to schedule them. I'm doing a lot of accounting right now. I will be scheduling them on Monday. So if I haven't scheduled yours yet, I do love you. I've had to do accounting. That's why I'm chubby. I've been sitting in a chair, miserable. This guy hates accounting. Oh man, I'm not going into it. All right. Element 3, has there been medical improvement in the original disabling impairment or impairments? Has there been medical improvement in the original disabling impairment or impairments? Medical improvement, any decrease in medical severity based on changes in symptoms, signs, or lab findings. What are symptoms? Symptoms are anything that's like the result of your impairment. You got a weird bruise? That's a symptom. You got fog of the mind? That's a symptom. Symptoms, signs, and laboratory findings. What are signs? Signs are symptoms that can be measured. You get a bruise. We can measure the bruise. We can see the color gradations, right? You get a weird, you get a weird fungus. That is a sign, right? It's a sign of the impairment. You have an OCD person and their knuckles are all shitty. I'm tired. It's late. Their knuckles are all messed up, right? They're bleeding and they're all crusty because they're constantly washing stuff. And I gotta wash that door and handle again. I gotta wash those shoes again. I gotta leave those, but I gotta wash them, right? That's right. Those are signs. They're physically or technically things capable of being, they don't always have to be physical, things capable of being measured by science. They are symptoms that science can measure. Cool. What are lab findings? You know what they are. Machine puddles out, it poopers out little data boopy boops. And that's your lab findings. Like, oh, does this person have a problem? Lab says they do. The lab says they do. All right. So that's what it is. They want to know, do you have medical improvement in the form of symptoms, signs, or lab findings? All right. Can I just be honest with you guys? A lot of you who are on disability benefits don't go because you don't want to sit in a medical facility and waste your time, which is weird because your only job is wasting your time to prove that you are still disabled, that you are still severe. It's just a weird conundrum. Also, very important, some of you are afraid to go to the doctor because if the tests come back that you have improved, you have just created laboratory findings. Yes, I know, spicy. So my point to you with this entire situation, just so you understand, is that if you don't go to the doctor and complain about your symptoms and show them your signs, which are symptoms that are medically capable of being measured. Okay. It could be a bruise. It could be something in your body that went like this. It could be something in your body that went like this. It's a medically capable of being measured symptom. Okay. So the point of it is, just to be clear with this, okay, it is incredibly important that most of you fail element 3 of the 8-step sequential process. Once again, element 3, if you want to go learn more about element 3, that's the butcher knife. Like if you're going down the timeline of being found disabled and you're wondering which element you're going to get hurt on, that's the butcher knife. That is the element in law of the SSA's disability code that most people fall afoul to. And let me tell you, let me give you like the top 3, okay? Top 3 of ways that people mess this up. The ways that people gently in a buttery, flowery, feather-like way F it up. Okay, here we go. When you go to an insurance-provided doctor, okay, hey, you know that you're going to get a little biased medical treatment. And it's going to be biased towards some corporate interest, okay? And that's going to show medical improvement. Or if you go to therapy, those therapists, oh my goodness, they want you to come back. They want you to keep treating. How do they do that? Well, in order to do that, they got to show the insurance company that you have what's called medical improvement. Otherwise, they don't want you going back. They're not going to continue to pay for it, right? Another way, you go ahead and basically go in, okay, and, you go to the hospital because something happened, right? It could be anything. It could be it could be anything. It literally could be you could have a. All right, let me give you a classic example of what happens most of the time. And this one's not exactly medical improvement, but this is in combination with how it goes to shit real fast. You are having fun. It's a Friday or Saturday night. So you're doing the opposite of what I do on Friday and Saturday nights. You are having fun. You drink a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You know what I mean? You're having a good time. You're having a great time, right? But then you're driving home, right? And then you get into a car accident. And then all of a sudden, you're in the hospital. And all of a sudden, you're telling the doctor beautiful stories about how you're working on this really cool garage, stupid shit that nobody cares about, but it's important to you that we talk about shelves. I don't know what's wrong with guys. We like to talk about mowing. I don't know. I like mowing too. It's because you get the lines nice. It's important. And then, women go to the doctor, right? And they're talking about relationship stuff. It's like, oh, well, he's that's one thing. When men become an adult, they realize that everybody knows every aspect of their relationship because their significant other can't shut up. That's the amazing thing about it. It's like women have like a blog system with every doctor, therapist, friend, their gay club, the whole group. Man, I'm telling you, they got a whole club gathering, right? But just so that you're aware, if you could be careful with what you are saying to these doctors after you had a fun time night, because you will talk about things that you should not be talking about, like climbing up ladders to work on those shelves, like going on some dinner date that ends up on the beach with a nice long walk. Just, you know what I mean? It just, some of you, and I get it. You know what I mean? You just having a good time, but you're effing it up. And I just need you to understand that. That is a major thing that shows medical improvement. That is element 3. Element 1 of the 8-step sequential process. Are you earning too much? Element 2. Do you have a listing? Element 3. Have you had medical improvement? Now, element 4. We're halfway through these. Then we get to talk about specifically what Trump is doing. Please remember to hit that like button. Some of you don't hit it, and it makes me cry in the corner at night. All right. I'm kidding. I mean, I'm not totally. All right, here we go. Number 4. Is the medical improvement related to the ability to work? Is the medical improvement related to the ability to work? Has there been an increase in your residual functional capacity because of the improvement? Residual functional capacity, what is that? Well, there's a fancy way to define it. I'm going to give you the layman's shitty way, because why not? You know what I mean? Nobody likes the fancy way. All right, except judges. But they're weird. But I love them, but they're weird. All right, so here's the deal. Think of RFCs, residual functional capacity abilities that show that you can work at a job, showing medical improvement that you could go back to a job, as the INGs, right? Walking, standing, pushing, pulling, crouching, kneeling, stooping, remembering, focusing, concentrating, whatevering. The INGs. Think of them as the INGs of your ability to do stuff, okay? If you have an increased ability to do the INGs, walking, standing, pushing, crouching, kneeling, stooping, lifting left arm, lifting right arm, right, then they have what they need to say, hey, you could potentially work a job. And when they have that, they're moving you out of the can't work a full-time job into the potentially can work a full-time job. And that right there is how people lose their disability benefits. And that already exists. That's already in the system. We're going to talk about the stuff that Trump could do that would hasten or change it to increase the likelihood of that. Element 5, do any of the exceptions to medical improvement apply? Okay, so let's talk about the exceptions to medical improvement, right? There are 2 groups of exceptions. There's fraud, failure to cooperate, inability to locate, technical reasons, SGA, trial work periods where you can't touch them. Is there an exception, right? Do we have to arrest the disabled person? Do we have to ignore them because they're in a validated, trial work period? Do we have to say, you know what, you keep doing what you're doing because you're in a ticket to work program and we want to see you do good work? Are they in an exception? Do we give them the benefit of the doubt? Do we ignore that they're working a lot more? Or are they fraudulent? They're committing fraud and we have to arrest them. That happens too. That is a real thing, and that happens too. Element number 6. Can the beneficiary, that's you, the recipient, currently have a severe impairment, does the beneficiary currently have a severe medical condition, a severe impairment, or combination of impairments? So let's say even if you have improved, right, your basic understanding, right, your basic ability to do stuff, right, could you essentially have a new situation where basically your impairment or combination of impairments would limit your ability to do vocational tasks, would limit your ability because you have something that quasi looks like a listing? Even considering you've had improvement, is there other stuff that makes it where you probably wouldn't be able to do this, or that? Element 7. Can the beneficiary perform past relevant work? Well, right, can you do your past jobs? That's a simple one. You're going to say hell no. Some of you get better. And this is what happens to most disabled people. Let's just be fair about this. Most disabled people, they're working, then they stop working. They go on disability benefits. They've been off, work for 5-6 years. A lot of people improve when they haven't worked for 5 or 6 years. That's just, when you just hang out, a lot of people medically improve. Next, final element of the 8-step sequential process. Can the beneficiary perform any other work existing in significant numbers in the national economy? And this is if the prior element was the cleaver, this element is the lightsaber. It is just a clean. A lot of people lose their benefits on this element. What this element about is, are there any jobs in the national economy anywhere? Alaska, Maine, California, Florida, Texas, one of those little Louisiana areas. Is there any spot in the national economy where there's a job that you could potentially do? This is the cleaver with a lightsaber behind it. Okay, most people lose their benefits right here when they already have benefits by the 8-step sequential process during CDRs. Now, that's just what we already have. That's what already exists. That's why every week, multiple times, almost every day, it usually is every day, I get a call from somebody that says, I've lost my benefits. What do I do? Okay, that's what we already have. Here are some additional items that Trump could potentially do to make it far less likely that you will be found disabled going into the future or retain your benefits going into the future. However, before we go into those, please remember to like and subscribe. Hit that like button. You got to hit that like button if you like the video, okay? Or at least I hope you would. I hope you would. Hype the video if you can. I have no idea what that really means. All right, now, here's the deal. These are things that Trump could potentially do. Now, I need to foreshadow where people are coming from with this whole thing. Trump comes across as the bad guy sometimes because he's trying to make the corporation not completely bankrupt itself. And, to be fair, we would want him to do things to other parts of the corporation, the federal government, before getting to the disabled, before getting to the retired, before getting to the supplemental security income recipients, the program of last resort. However, that is not his approach. His approach is hit every potential category, every potential agency administration, every potential group in the federal government, reduction. That's what CEOs do. That's where they come from. Their whole thing is figure out how to save the company. And, to be very clear, a lot of you don't ever really worry about the $38 trillion we are in debt, because a lot of you just kind of, to be fair, you live like me. I live in this I live in this place, this hypocritical land where I'm just like, I have no control over it, so F it. It is what it is. Like, what am I going to do about it? I'm not going to do shit about it because I can't do anything about it, right? We can't afford our credit card bills as a country. We can't afford our mortgages and our loans as a country. We can't afford to increase our military spending or increase our spending on educating kids or increase our ability to help the disabled and retired because we broke. we $38 trillion in debt broke. Okay. That's how shit stuck in the mud, foot can't get out of the bucket. We are concreted in bad. It actually is. Now, some of you will say, well, that's not Obama's fault or Biden's fault or Bush's fault or Clinton's. Well, technically it's not Clinton's fault or Trump's fault. Pretty much everybody after Clinton, it's their fault. It's their fault. And a little bit of Clinton at the very end, but very little. Okay. Clinton was on track for a lot of big things. Monica Lewinsky happened. Everything went in the trash. Okay. That's the reality. All right. Here are the things Trump could do that would mess up a lot of your lives as disabled people on Social Security disability benefits, whether it's SSDI Title II or SSI Title 16. Here we go. Number one, he could stop recognizing subjective, basically analysis, subjective testimony. He could stop recognizing statements that are pain-oriented, fatigue-oriented, post-exertional oriented, and only utilize 100% corroborated objective evidence or objective tests. Why? Technically, it's required that they use objective evidence to get to the end. But it's also required that they use the subjective evidence as a part of the weight when they decide whether or not they want to lean left or lean right for giving somebody benefits. So to be fair, if they got rid of subjective symptoms and only utilized fully backed objective tests, labs, imaging, stuff like that, signs, no symptoms without actual capable measurements that go with them, you would be seeing a lot of people, a ton of people, a whole schmutz of people. When I went to my roots there, like fibromyalgia people, anxiety people, long COVID people, chronic fatigue people, migraine people, a lot of depression, schizoaffectives, a lot of those types of claims would get denied real fast because the tests that we have is sometimes objective, but people don't always get the tests they need, especially the people found disabled back in the day. Woo, buddy, let me tell you, a lot of them were found disabled on a, you went to the doctor said you're pretty bad, get them through, get them paid. It's a very different world back then. Another thing Trump could do to try and reduce the amount of people on disability benefits, therefore taking fewer SSI checks, fewer SSI dollars from the general taxes, or fewer SSDI dollars from the trust fund, shorten the appeal window and make the administrative law judge hearings discretionary and make it more difficult to appeal to appeals counsel. So let's say instead of having 60 days to appeal, you got 20 days or you got 10 days, you would be seeing a massive amount of people in a shitstorm of freaking out, having anxiety. And let me tell you how it would come down. This is exactly how it would come down. The person would get the letter that they were denied, and the letter would be postmarked. And the letter would say, you have, let's say 10 days to appeal this. Technically, they give you 5 mailing, right? You have 10 days to appeal this letter, right? But you get it 2 days before it's already run. So you get it 2 days before the end of when you had to appeal it, because that's how mail is. You know what I mean? That's what happens to people all the time. So that would create a massive amount of anxiety. It would freak a bunch of people out, and it would basically decrease the amount of people who properly appealed in the proper timeline. And you would have to use what's called the 404.911 statute to extend the 10 days, the 20 days, etc. Right now it's 60 plus 5 mailing. But if they shortened it to 10 or 20, man, let me tell you. Now, if they made, for example, hearings to be essentially discretionary, or that you had to prove something to be able to get a hearing, right? You had to meet a certain level requirement to get a hearing, which is the most likelihood of being found disabled because you're going in front of a judge that actually knows the system, as opposed to a college grad who kind of knows the general bullet points of stuff, right? You know what I mean? It kind of works. I think this one, maybe, that would really mess things up. Next one, if they basically required really current, really recent medical documentation. So let's say that if you go through this analysis and you have to have within the past 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, recent medical source treatment, recent specialists, recent people working on this to give testimony. Let me tell you, most disabled people going through a CDR would fail. And that's because most of them don't have a lot of medical evidence over the past 60 days, 90 days. Why? Because a lot of them are living in dreamland. They're just getting a check and they're not worried about it. It's coming. Not worried about it keeping coming. But now you are, because now you know the system's changing. And that's an important thing. If you pick up anything from this video, it is repetitive and continuous medical documentation. Let's switch the details. Let's say that they were only willing to review medical source statements that occurred within the past 30 days. So they send you to their doctor and you have to have seen your doctor within the past 30 days. That would create a massive amount of denials for people, because most people wouldn't have medical documentation from their doctor. They'd only have medical documentation from the doctor that they saw as part of the CDR via the consultative examination medical expert appointment, right? Their CEME, their doctor, the one you go to. Most people would be kicked off of benefits as a result of that. Very serious, not something light to think about, okay? Next one. Let's say that basically they said, hey, we can't afford to do these reviews anymore. Let's imagine they say, you know what? We can't afford it anymore. We're going to have to go ahead and outsource them to a private company, which they kind of already do, because technically DDS is the ones who adjudicate them at the state level, which is like a little private company at the state level. But if you went full private corporate that reviewed to see if you should still keep disability benefits, they're going to go knock on the door of the LTD carriers, of the workers' comp carriers, and ask them to process the claims. And I guarantee you are not going to like that. I guarantee you're not going to like that. I guarantee you're not going to like that. Okay. Next one. All right. Here's another one. Let's say basically, this is a situation where if we look at essentially medical improvement, right? Are you showing medical improvement? Symptoms, signs, lab reports, okay? If they redefined it, where basically the medical improvement had to show something that was about your ability to work, and you had to do tests that showed your capacity to do certain residual functional abilities. And they found a way to not let you cheat a little here, cheat a little there. I'm having a tough day. I can't stand, I can't lay down. If they found a way to test you, like if they made you wear a device for, let's say, a 3-month period, right? Every morning you had to wake up, you had to put it on. Or you had a sleep device and you had a wake device, and you only had to take them off for when you were going to take a shower, right? If they found a way to do that, I guarantee you, there would be so many people kicked off of disability benefits. It would spin your heads. And let me tell you why. If you watch somebody, if you follow somebody, if you put a device on somebody's body to follow them around, right? The first couple of weeks, they're going to play the game. I'm so bad. But then after that, they're going to start acting more and more like they normally would. And then after month 1, they're starting to do normal stuff. After month 2, they're doing a lot of normal stuff. Month 3, they're riding a bicycle with a back problem, right? They will really reduce the amount of people on disability benefits if they start using devices to measure severity of impairment. Okay. Next one. And I mean, keep in mind with that last one, they could go ahead and put an app on your phone that tracks you. They could do all kinds of stuff. Okay. Because remember, you're on a government program. If you're SSDI, you paid to have it, but it's still a government program. Don't think that they're going there. Look at China. China has an entire point system for who gets to be basically able to go to schools, get a student loan, get a bank loan, get a bank account, get a mortgage, rent a place. It's all coming. It's all part of that digital stuff. It is coming. Next one. Let's say that you had to go through a brand new full adjudication once you achieved certain age brackets. Now, technically, this only exists once in the current law. That is when you are transitioning from 17 to 18, ergo adulthood. They use a new full re-adjudication to see if you're disabled from the child-based system to the adult-based system for disability benefits. That's how the federal government works. However, If they introduced a new rule that said you had to be found disabled at 25, 35, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, that you had to be found disabled with a brand new full and total adjudication, I guarantee you'd see a lot of people kicked off. Most people found disabled back in the day who just weren't that bad, they're gone. They're off the program. They would, because remember, they'll survive a new adjudication on the old rules, where they were found disabled on the old rules. They're not going to survive a new adjudication on the new rules, like the rules that are today. Today's rules, they're not going to pass that for the most part. A lot of people would not pass the new rules, okay? And you don't really hear those people in the comments anymore. They're like, I was found disabled in 3 months. I was found disabled in 1 week. I was found disabled in 2 weeks. I must be really bad. You must not be that bad. And they're always like, you must not be that bad because, all those BSers, right? The ones where I was found disabled because I had, something in my nose and it hurt my sinuses. Those people, to be very clear, I have a little thing in my back and it hurts my back. I have a little thing in my, my urinary tract. I have a little thing in my stomach. I have a little thing in my head. Those people, I'm not talking about like full asthma people. Full asthma people, they can't breathe. They can't walk. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about people with like, really messed up spines where they need surgery and infusions all over the place. I'm talking about the people found disabled back in the day where they were, just not that bad, right? Or they were bad enough to get through, but they're not bad enough today. If Trump made it so that they had to do a redetermination, kind of like, and I'm not saying that this is a combination you should use in public, but kind of like, what I mean, where, basically it's may the odds ever be with you, one of those like classic, Hunger Games situations. That's kind of like what it would be like. If every 10 years you'd go through a full new readjudication, I guarantee you a lot of people would be kicked off. I guarantee it. Next, and I hope you're like listening. I hope you're like getting it, because like a lot of people, some people just make fun of me. They're like, oh, that guy seems like a blah, 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 whatever. Those people are, they have hatred in their heart and they want to lick a sad gummy bear. But the bottom line is this, okay? There's other people that are like just dreaming and having a good time. Listen, I'm telling you the things that are potential future problems. I'm like giving you the roadmap of what you should watch out for. Next thing, another thing Trump could do is to go ahead and instead of just counting what you earn, potentially count what all of the household income would be for in-kind support evidence, not just for SSI, but also for SSDI. If you have people in your household, you're married to somebody that's earning big bucks, then they could try and say, yeah, you know what? We don't want to pay you regular disability. Yeah, you paid in all those years. Yeah, you did that. But we don't want to pay you. We don't want to pay you regular disability. We don't want to do it. They could apply that to SSDI, and that would kick a ton of people off. A ton of people off. A lot of those veteran spouses. Oh, let me tell you, there's a lot of women that are dating guys, and the guys are disabled veterans, and the women take care of that guy. And then that female, almost, it's so many times, almost always, she becomes disabled herself. She becomes disabled herself, almost always. It's just, that's the natural progression of how that relationship always goes. Okay. She gets her SSDI check. He gets his VA and SSDI check. That's the natural progression of how that always goes. Okay. Let me be clear. That would hurt those people. And that's not good. We want to take care of veterans. If we don't take care of veterans, we don't have heroes that are going to want to sign up. We want heroes to sign up. That is high importance, high priority. All right, next thing. All right, let's say basically, if we were to go ahead and do a fast track termination for anyone under 50, where basically they don't meet new regulatory requirements, where they changed the rule and said, you know what, you got to meet this now. You got to meet that now. And they got rid of the rule that said we're going to use the old rules of how you were found disabled. I mean, it would be potentially unconstitutional, but let's say they got rid of it. Okay. That would really mess up a lot of people because they could create a fast track redetermination system for people under 50. It would be like a quasi, the opposite of the grid rules. Be like the grid rules rethunk, and that would really mess up a lot of people because at the end of the day, it's just the new rules and regulations every day, every year, it gets harder to be found disabled. All right, next thing. Let's say, and they did a lot of this one during Commissioner Saul, Trump's first term. So when you guys hear this, you're like, oh, that'll never happen. It did happen, and it can get worse. So I just hope you turn the little light bulb on and think about this. Basically, they could eliminate the treating physician rule completely, which is right now the way they do it is, your treating physician has so much weight, and they look at it, but it is very comparable to the weight of their CEME doctor that they send you to, right? And sometimes the CEME doctor is like a high-level specialist, and they get even more weight than the doctor you go to. So at the end of the day, if they wanted to go ahead and downgrade even more what your doctor's weight of evidence could potentially be worth, which would then increase even more the use of their doctor. Because remember, the doctors they choose to do these CEMEs, they've got clout. They've got high-level schnuzzery, okay? They got, I went to Yale, this and Harvard, that, and blah, blah, blah. Double board certified, save the whales and the children. They got clout. You know what I mean? They got high-level stuff. So they could do that, would mess up a lot of people because it downgrades the weight of the evidence that your doctor actually creates for you. Now, we got a few more left to go. Please remember to like. Please remember to subscribe. It's super crucial. Hit that like button. Hype the video. Also, I don't do Medicare stuff. So if you want Medicare, call these guys. They can do a tune-up on your plan. All right, here we go. Another thing. So let's say they went ahead, and this one scares the shit out of me. This is similar to what the VA does, but the VA doesn't take it all this way. VA uses something what's called the pyramiding schedule or pyramiding, where if there's an impairment and other impairments result from that impairment, they adjudicate you for this impairment and don't give you percentages for the ones down the line, which to me, coming from Social Security, is total bullshittery. It's not good. It's a bad regulatory way of doing it. All right, let's get into this. Let's say that they went ahead and adopted a strict way of reviewing conditions, and they basically would not look at combined effects anymore, but only the effects of each impairment at each time. So they would assess each condition as an isolated condition and not the combination of your impairments limiting you as they all combine. This would F over most people on disability benefits. This one scares me some of the most. I know a lot of you are not going to understand why that's important. Let me try explaining it one more time. The SSA uses a system where they look at all of your impairments and how they swirl together and screw up your ability to work. If they got rid of that and said, no, we're just going to take each impairment and see how you would be limited vocationally with each impairment, I guarantee you most people would be kicked off of disability benefits with this one. This would be the most horrific change out of all of them. I know a lot of you are not going to understand that one, but just trust me, you really don't want that one. You extra don't want that one. Next one. All right, let's take a look at this real quick. Let's say instead of reviewing people every 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, or not at all, everybody got reviewed every 6 to 12 months. It would be impossible, right? It wouldn't. Their new AI programs, their new scheduling system, they're able to review people and send out letters and send out forms on time, consistently, every time. It's digitized. They got this whole thing. There's no person back there stamping a letter to send it out. This is printed out en masse from a mega machine that spits it out to a mailroom that then goes out. This is not the old school system. The new school system uses AI to buy your records from the medical facility automatically through a file sharing system. No HIPAA needed. And then at that, well, quasi HIPAA needed. You need an 827 for some things. You already pre-agree for some other stuff. But the bottom line is this, okay? 827 is a HIPAA. The bottom line is this. They're able to use artificial intelligence to create an auto report. And that report tells them what the percentages of how disabled you really are and the likelihood of you getting kicked off of benefits as a result. And it pulls all the evidence that looks really shitty for your situation. Just giving you a heads up, okay? Next one. This one is going to screw over a lot of people. It's not something I agree with at all, ever being put in place. I think it's easy for people to understand what it is. I think they don't understand how it would mess them up, though. This is an auto ceasing of benefits completely, not just like we're going to slap your wrist and then give you benefits the next month, but an auto ceasing of benefits. The moment you earn over SGA and you're outside of the 9-month trial work period, 3-month eligibility period, you're outside of the ticket to work program, you're not doing the ticket to work program. The moment you are outside of those and you earn 1 month over SGA, it is a full denial of benefits for each month going forward until you get a new adjudication to prove that you're still disabled. That would be horrific, absolutely terrifying. Most people, they lose benefits for that month, whatever. Then they get their benefits back next month. They report it. They don't get to have their benefit. It is what it is, right? They get an overpayment for a month. Not a big deal. I mean, it is a big deal, but it's not the end of the world. But if you said, if you go over SGA, we're cutting off benefits, you got to go through a re-adjudication, you would destroy families, destroy disabled people doing that. It is a horrible, horrible idea. Very bad. All right. I'm Attorney Walter Hnot, the most viewed, subscribed to, and clicked on disability attorney in America. Please remember to like and subscribe. One of the things, if you enjoy this video, that I like to wake up to see is if you go to Google and you type in disability resolution law firm, disability resolution, throw some stars up there on the company page. I always appreciate that. Finally, Mondays and Thursdays, I go live to answer questions for free. Also, if you want a private session, if you want representation, just call the firm during the 9 to 5. But if you have a question, you're already on benefits, you're thinking about going on benefits, but you're not stopping work yet, you have somebody investigating you and following you around. If you, want to do a private session, 30 minutes, 1 hour, mini contract is below. I'll catch you a little bit later. I'll catch you at the next video. Give me about 15, 20 minutes. We'll rock and roll from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Oh, and please, 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 please remember, it's a holiday season. Be nice to each other. Some of you get snarky. Don't get hangry. I love you all. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.